Pooh Shiesty says Boosie's the only rapper that got more bodies than him. On another episode of Rappers Out Here Telling on Them Damn Selves, you got Pooh Shiesty.
You won't believe what just exploded on Instagram, and the whole hip-hop world felt it at the same time. Something wild just hit Instagram, and the whole hip-hop space froze for a second. T.I. dropped a post that didn't just raise eyebrows, it shook timelines in a major way. In the caption, he wrote that the only rapper with more bodies than him is Lil Boosie.
Sir, I don't got no body. Don't put me in that conversation in any type of situation. Don't troll with it. Don't rap about it. Don't even speak on it, as Boosie just got a very light sentence in the feds, and I say beating the feds because they wanted prison time from him, but he was able to walk it.
Yeah, he really said that, and almost instantly, people started reading between the lines and tying that statement to something way deeper than rap talk. This wasn't just bars anymore, at least not to the internet. Now here's where it gets serious, because when Lil Boosie's name gets mentioned in that kind of context, it doesn't stay music gossip. It drifts straight into old federal cases, courtroom memories, and one of the most talked about legal sagas ever connected to a rapper. And while nobody knows exactly how Boosie reacted behind closed doors, word around the industry is that he didn't brush it off like it was nothing. Before anyone jumps to wild conclusions, let's slow it down. This isn't about proving anything new or throwing fresh claims on anybody's name. This is about revisiting a chapter that already made huge headlines years ago.
Pooh Shiesty says Boosie's the only rapper that got more bodies than him. On another episode of Rappers Out Here Telling on Them Damn Selves, you got Pooh Shiesty talking about Boosie's the only one that lay down more.
And trust me, it was heavy stuff that had the whole culture watching closely. Lil Boosie, born and raised in Baton Rouge, built his brand on being real. Street stories, pain, survival. That raw energy became the backbone of his career. A lot of fans respect him because they believe he lived what he rapped. But back in the mid-2000s, that same image placed him in the middle of a serious legal storm that changed everything. And this is where the name Marlo Mike comes in. Michael Marlo Mike Louding was just 15 years old at the time prosecutors said he was connected to a string of serious street conflicts in Baton Rouge. 15 years old. That detail alone shocked people and made the entire situation feel even more intense, especially once courtroom testimony started laying everything out in public.
Boy, you know what, than him. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, boy, you ain't learned your lesson just getting out. Boosie probably over there like, come on, man. Come on. Boy, don't be out here talking about what Man, Boosie like, man, I just beat my case, man. What you doing, Pooh Shiesty?
Marlo Mike later admitted in court that he was involved in multiple violent incidents, saying he had been influenced by older figures around him at the time. During the trial, prosecutors pushed a major claim. They argued that Boosie had directed certain actions and provided money. That was their position in court. They painted a picture of organized retaliation, not random street chaos, but calculated responses tied to ongoing disputes. Boosie strongly denied those accusations, and this part really matters. He faced serious charges connected to multiple situations.
I could have swore Pooh Shiesty was reposting the F the Streets movement, right? Now he back over there bragging about putting more work in than anybody out there besides Boosie. We done heard the stories and things like that, but I'm like, man, these rappers gotta be smarter, man.
But in 2012, after a highly publicized trial, he was acquitted of the first-degree charge related to the Terry Boyd case. The jury did not convict him on that count. That's a key detail people tend to forget when social media brings this story back up. However, Marlo Mike received multiple life sentences following his own admissions and the evidence presented during proceedings. In testimony, he spoke about how the weight of his actions began to overwhelm him. Reports at the time said he struggled to sleep and felt intense pressure from everything that had unfolded. He eventually cooperated with investigators and gave detailed statements about the events. Now, whether every claim he made was fully accurate or shaped by the pressure of the moment is still debated today.
Won't you take that Pooh Shiesty on? That Pooh Shiesty mask off. You done had it on about 2 days. You out here in the mountains. A bear gonna think you something else. Bear gonna bite your f***ing off.
The prosecution referenced names like Terry Boyd, Marcus Thomas, and Chris Jackson, arguing the incidents were connected to street disputes, alleged snitching rumors, and ongoing tensions in Baton Rouge. That was the narrative presented in court. Each case had its own timeline, its own evidence, its own heartbreak. Families were left carrying deep pain. The city felt the impact in a serious way. And when all of this played out inside a Louisiana courtroom, the entire state was watching closely. So when T.I. casually types a caption comparing bodies to Lil Boosie, it doesn't land like a normal rap line. It hits different. It pulls up memories of courtroom sketches, emotional testimony, and news clips that took over headlines more than a decade ago. That history is still there, and one caption was enough to stir it right back up.
Some people see it as trolling.
Man, I don't give a fuck. It's called a Pooh Shiesty man. It ain't no Nike man.
Others call it reckless wordplay, and a few are straight up asking why anyone would even joke like that, knowing how serious those real-life cases were. That's why this whole thing feels bigger than a simple caption. Now here's where it gets layered. Back in the mid-2000s, Baton Rouge was going through intense street tension. Crime rates were high. Music and street life were closely connected. Federal investigators were looking into multiple groups and networks, not just one artist. So when Boosie's name showed up in those investigations, it instantly became national headlines. But again, he was acquitted on the most serious charge tied to Terry Boyd. That verdict shifted the direction of everything. Still, Marlo Mike's testimony remains part of public record.
I don't be on your trail. I'm trying to better you, bro. What if you jump out the car with somebody with that on? Because every time somebody walk by me with that on, I be watching them, bro. When I get out the mountain anywhere, I be watching them, bro.
He described being young, impressionable, and pulled in by loyalty and fear. Prosecutors argued that influence from older figures mattered. Defense attorneys pushed back hard, questioning credibility and motives. It turned into a full-on battle of narratives inside that courtroom. And that's exactly why this Instagram caption hit different. This isn't just rap rivalry or competitive talk. It connects to real court transcripts, real verdicts, and real-life consequences that changed futures forever. That history doesn't just disappear. When people online reacted, it wasn't just about lyrics. It was about reopening a chapter many believed was already sealed shut. That's why the response came fast and loud. Now let's be clear. There is no new federal case connected to T.I.'s post. There are no confirmed new investigations sparked by a caption. That's just speculation floating around social media. But the reason it spread like wildfire is because of the history tied to the name he mentioned. And Boosie has always been vocal when it comes to speaking on his past legal battles. He has said publicly that he fought hard to clear his name and that the justice system tried to label him as something he wasn't. His supporters stand solid on that. Critics still question parts of the story. That split never really disappeared. So when T.I. posted that line, it cracked open debates that were never fully settled. Some people called it clout chasing. Others brushed it off as dark humor. Few felt it crossed the line, especially knowing real lives were impacted. And here's what makes it even heavier. Hip-hop has always used violent imagery and lyrics. But when those lyrics connect to documented court cases, the vibe changes fast. It stops sounding like metaphor and starts feeling personal. That's why this moment blew up the way it did. It's not just about who typed what. It's about the weight behind the names being mentioned. It's about Baton Rouge history. It's about a teenager who ended up serving life sentences. It's about a rapper who once faced the possibility of spending his life behind bars and was acquitted on the most serious charge. And now, years later, all of that history gets pulled back into the spotlight because of one Instagram caption. Whether this grows into a full rap feud or fades out as internet noise, nobody knows yet. But one thing is clear. When certain names get brought up in certain ways, the conversation stops feeling like entertainment and starts feeling like unfinished business. According to testimony given by Michael Marlo Mike Louding, the situation wasn't random chaos. He claimed the incidents were not just angry suggestions thrown around in the heat of the moment. He told investigators that instructions were allegedly specific: how to move, when to act, how to avoid attention afterward if his account was accurate. Those claims became a major focus during proceedings, and they're still part of the public record today. It pointed to planning instead of impulse. That's what made the prosecution's narrative feel so intense. Marlo Mike testified that after each incident, he was paid in cash, sometimes a few $1,000s, sometimes more. For a teenager growing up in rough conditions, that kind of money can feel life-changing. But according to his statements in court, no amount of cash could silence what was building inside him. He described sleepless nights, anxiety, cold sweats. He told the court the emotional pressure started crushing him from the inside. Imagine being that young and carrying something that heavy, whether people believe every word he said or not.
His testimony painted a picture of someone unraveling under the weight of his own choices. Eventually, he went to law enforcement and gave a full statement. He didn't just admit his own involvement, he gave names, timelines, and descriptions. He agreed to testify. On the streets, that decision got him labeled a snitch, but in court, he said he simply couldn't keep living with what had happened. That clash between street code and courtroom reality sparked debates that still follow this case today. Then came May 2012. Lil Boosie went to trial in connection with the 2009 incident involving Terry Boyd. The prosecution's key witness was Marlo Mike himself. When he took the stand, reports say the courtroom went completely silent. Now in his early 20s, he described what prosecutors presented as a targeted act tied to ongoing street tension. He explained how he followed Boyd, waited for what he believed was the right moment, and carried out the attack. He testified that he was paid $2,800 afterward and told "good job." That testimony landed heavy and changed the energy in the room instantly. But here's the other side of it. The defense argued that Marlo Mike had every reason to shift blame. They suggested he was trying to reduce his own punishment by pointing fingers upward. They challenged his credibility and highlighted inconsistencies in his story. Lil Boosie maintained his innocence the entire time, saying he had no involvement in directing any attacks. And the prosecution didn't rely on testimony alone. They introduced phone records showing communication between Boosie and Marlo Mike during certain time frames. They pointed to financial activity they believed supported their argument. They also brought forward witnesses who claimed they overheard conversations connected to the allegations. The courtroom became a battlefield of details and interpretations. The jury had a lot to sort through. Deliberations stretched on for hours. Outside the courtroom, the hip-hop world was watching closely. Some were convinced this would end Boosie's career. Others felt the case had weak spots from the very beginning. Then came the verdict: not guilty on the first-degree charge connected to Terry Boyd. When that decision was read, emotions ran high. Supporters celebrated loudly. Critics raised eyebrows. But legally speaking, Boosie walked out of that courtroom cleared on that charge. That part of the story is factual and important. The outcome looked very different from Marlo Mike. He was convicted on multiple counts and sentenced to life without parole. Just 22 years old, facing the rest of his life behind bars for actions tied to his teenage years. That reality alone left people divided. Some felt justice had played out the way it should. Others believed the situation was more layered than headlines made it seem. And here's something many overlook. Even though Marlo Mike admitted involvement in numerous incidents, not every situation led to separate convictions. The legal system did not pursue every allegation individually. For some families, that meant limited closure. For others, it meant questions that never fully faded. During the investigation, authorities also looked deeper into the broader environment in Baton Rouge at the time. Prosecutors described what they believed was a pattern. Younger individuals allegedly being influenced by older figures connected to the local music scene. That wider picture added even more complexity to an already intense case. Prosecutors argued that loyalty, fear, and money created a dangerous mix. That was their portrayal in court. But on the streets, opinions were split wide open. Some people believe Boosie was targeted because of his fame and profile. Others feel the testimony spoke for itself. And even now, more than a decade later, the debate still hasn't cooled off. What makes this case so layered is how it sits right at the crossroads of music and street reality. Rap has always told stories about survival, power, and payback. But when lyrics start overlapping with real court transcripts, things get complicated fast. Back then, Federal investigators were reportedly looking into possible links between violence and parts of the local rap scene. They examined whether influence and status played a role in shaping certain environments. That wider lens is part of why the case grabbed national headlines. Still, no court ultimately convicted Boosie of organizing a criminal enterprise the way prosecutors described. That distinction matters, and that's exactly why T.I.'s recent caption made so much noise.
When someone references bodies in hip-hop culture, it can mean chart success, it can mean lyrical wins, it can be pure metaphor. But when a name like Lil Boosie gets attached to that phrase, it doesn't stay symbolic for long. It pulls a decade-old legal storm right back into public conversation. Some see it as reckless trolling, others think it's calculated shock value. And if you're wondering whether artists think about the real families connected to those past cases when posting lines like that, that question alone shows how deep this runs. No matter where you stand, one thing is clear. This isn't just rap drama, it's history resurfacing. It's old courtrooms replaying in people's minds all over again. It's a reminder of how thin the line can feel between music, image, and real-life consequences. Some people saw Lil Boosie as a target, arguing the system wanted to make an example of a successful black artist. Others believed the testimony suggested he misused influence. The debate split barbershops, social media feeds, and the hip-hop world straight down the middle. Boosie's family stood by him the entire time, saying prosecutors unfairly pointed to his lyrics as evidence. Were they judging art or actual actions? That question never fully faded. He was later released in 2014 after serving time on drug-related charges, not the Terry Boyd case. Meanwhile, Michael Marlowe Louding remains incarcerated at Angola. He has expressed regret in past interviews, but the impact of those years still lingers. Fast forward to 2024, and Pooh Shiesty posts a caption saying, "The only rapper with more bodies than him is Lil Boosie." Instantly, the internet lights up. Is it just rap talk? Is it trolling? Or is it something deeper? Context matters. T.I., born Clifford Tip Harris, has faced serious federal charges in recent years. In 2022, he pleaded guilty to a firearms conspiracy charge and received 63 months in federal prison. His projected release is 2026. Because of that background, when he references bodies, people don't just hear lyrics, they start connecting dots. His music has included aggressive imagery about handling problems and pulling up on locations, which only adds to the online speculation. That's why one caption was enough to shake the timeline all over again. Still, there is no conviction proving he has taken anyone's life. That distinction matters. In Boosie's case, he was acquitted on the most serious charge tied to Terry Boyd. That's a fact. In T.I.'s case, he pleaded guilty to a firearms-related conspiracy charge. That's also a fact. Everything beyond that lives in interpretation, and that's exactly why the post hit so hard. It wasn't just a caption, it reopened old courtrooms, old headlines, and old arguments people thought was settled. When rap culture, legal history, and social media collide, attention follows fast. T.I. is currently serving federal time on firearms-related charges. That's documented. So when someone in that position hints at having bodies, even if it's just rap talk, people start asking questions. Words carry weight, especially when authorities are known to monitor public statements and lyrics. Some think it's trolling for attention. Others feel it's risky when your freedom is already limited. With that kind of legal history, even a caption can spark heavy speculation. As for Lil Boosie, people close to him suggest he's not feeding into the situation. The message floating around is simple. Artists shouldn't play with their freedom for social media clout. After fighting serious charges himself, it would make sense to avoid extra spotlight. No need to invite more noise. This whole moment highlights a bigger issue in hip-hop, the pressure to seem the most real or the most dangerous. But real-life consequences aren't entertainment. Boosie faced life-changing charges. Marlo Mike is serving life. T.I. is incarcerated right now. Those are real outcomes tied to real decisions. When body count becomes a brag online, it stops sounding like music and starts reopening real history. Families were impacted, courtrooms were involved, sentences were handed down. That's not just content for a timeline. At the end of the day, clout fades. Freedom is harder to get back. So what do you think? Was Pooh Shiesty trolling, throwing shade, or just speaking in rap code? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you made it this far, hit like, share this video, and subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. And check out the video on your screen right now for more celebrity drama you need to know about.